The laughing you hear is from our distinguished panelists this morning. We've got two very distinguished, top producing real estate brokers who are going to give you insights you need because the real estate market is a real bear right now. With us is Amber Kardosh. Amber, would you like to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do?
Oh, I will. I'm Amber Kardosh. I'm with At Properties Christie's International. Steve is booing me in the background. I work with buyers and sellers and investors, and I've been doing this for about 10 years now.
That's what's up. All right. And across the room from her, at a safe distance because of the restraining order, is Steve Davis. Yourself and tell us what you do after you're done laughing.
Sure. Steve Davis, Real Brokerage. I'm also a realtor.
Stay with us.
For residential and help with buyers, sellers, investors. And I've been doing this for 19 years.
You win.
So I'm cooler. And you can find me on Instagram at I'm Steve Davis or on Facebook.
Good stuff. I'm Patrick Loftus. I'm a real estate lawyer, slightly different, but in the same industry. I've been doing it for 21 years, so nana boo boo.
Oh.
But what that means is you have in this room over 50 years of experience in real estate, and so if you are anywhere near wanting to jump into that market as a seller, a buyer, an investor, as just an interested third-party observer, this is the hour for you. And finally, not in the room, but with us in spirit and over the ISDN line, or whatever they do these days, Joey Matthews, the VA Loan Nerd on all socials. Joey, introduce yourself for us.
Why, hello, Joey Matthews, NMLS 1230694. The VA Loan Nerd, you can find me across all the socials as at the VA Loan Nerd on my website, thevaloannerd.com. You can call or text me at 630-235-2405. And since we're all battling over stupid year things, I am 41 years old. So there we go. I've been alive for 41 years.
What a guy.
Yeah, everyone has to throw years out there for some reason.
That's cool.
Anyway.
That's cool. You know what? I learned something about Joey today. That's great.
Yeah, good times.
Joey, let me ask you a really unfair question. Are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
So I got a call from a friend of mine who's also been a client from time to time, and he asks me a question I'm sure you are sick and tired of hearing, but it's a question on a lot of people's minds, and that is, when are rates going to go down? When is it time for me to look into refinancing? Joey, when are rates going down, man?
When the economy supports that movement.
I hate that answer. I hate that answer.
When is that happening, Joey?
I need to know exactly when a range of dates or an exact date would be ideal if you could.
I hate you.
She's a magician over here.
I mean, the 100-day moving average is down, right? But over the last, it's barely down. It's down, 20 basis points, which is nothing for rate. That might be the equivalent of an eighth. So, at the end of the day, just don't expect it, right? Don't expect it. If it happens, hey, awesome, cool. We refinance, all good things, right? But don't go into something just expecting the rate market to shift. Will it happen? Yes. Will it happen soon? I can't tell you that. Will it happen in the next 10 years? I would bet on it, right? But am I going to sit here and say that in the next year we're going to see a huge market shift where rates go down? I think that would be terrible for the market. I think that would be terrible for anyone who's trying to buy a house because you're going to be paying higher dollar amounts, right? I forget what the statistic is, but it's like 1 million buyers flood into the market for every 1% rate drop. You're not dealing with that competition right now.
The look on Steve's face when you said that, he looked like he was in pain.
Yeah. I mean, you have to consider what you're getting at the higher rates. You're getting less competition. And it's already a competitive market right now because I think a lot of people have accepted where the rate market is, and they're just hoping rates come down in the future. So if you're on the sideline, you're missing out, period.
And Joey, yes, I did try to put you in the trick bag right there. That was completely intentional. I have no apologies for that. But what the answer you just gave is exactly what I wanted to hear, because it's kind of what I'm telling people, more or less, when people are like, wow, when do you think interest rates are going to come down? Most likely when the economy is bad. Okay.
Yeah.
So with interest rates staying stable, it means the economy is stable. If the economy gets bad and interest rates go down, as a buyer, now you're worried about getting laid off, right? I mean, there's always going to be something pulling at you one direction or the other. Interest rates are down, great. But my boss said, hey, our bonuses are on hold this year. And it's like, oh, man, you can't win for winning. But, the point is, if you keep waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting, and you're waiting for the exact right time. Amber, Steve, when is the exact right time? Do you ever have clients who are just like, this is the perfect time, I'm doing it right now, I have no worries whatsoever?
Go ahead, Steve.
Oh, once or twice, I would say.
Once or twice.
Oh, yeah.
Out of how, like,
Yeah.
what's the percentage there?
I'm being facetious, obviously. A lot of them feel that way.
They feel like this is the perfect time.
No, they all feel the same way, which is, when are the rates coming down? When are the rates coming down? When are the rates coming down? And the thing is like, I've had this conversation, and I think preemption is the biggest thing you need to have right now, and you need to preempt your clients. Listen, if you are emotional, if you're not taking this as a business transaction, if you're not whatever, this is not for the weak at this time. If you want a deal, do not buy right now. If you want to make sure, you want to find something where there's going to be no competition, do not buy right now. It is not the time to be laxy-daisy or not listen, more importantly, to a professional that does this every single day. There are a lot of clients out there that want, they want to feel like they bought something not overpriced.
Everybody wants that, right?
Right, but right now is
Welcome
even
to the club.
harder because the fact is like, we give you the comps, we tell you what you should list the property at, we tell you what you should purchase the property at, or what this is probably going to do to win the deal, and then you're going to listen to us or not. So the ones that are not listening, or the ones that think they still know better for some crazy reason, they're going to be very unhappy with the results. Amber,
do you ever run into people who think they know better? That was a loaded question.
Yes, it was. Yeah, and it's fun. But, ultimately, your job is to consult, give the advice, and then they decide, right? But I think with buyers right now, at least for me, and I'm sure, Steve, you do it too, is in the initial conversation of buying, you tell them how the market's, like, prepare yourself. You're not going to get 30 grand under ask or even 10. You're going to still be in most places where you're going over, giving up your dog, maybe your kid you haven't had yet. Like, it's that kind of market right now. And yeah, it stinks for us because part of our job is to be master negotiators, but your negotiations are very limited. And so you feel bad. I mean, I hate going, okay, guys, this is what you have to do. And if it doesn't appraise, you're going to have to come up with a difference if you're going to win. I mean, it's a terrible market, but there's such a backlog of buyers right now who've been looking, and I have a lot of them who have been looking for a year and a half, and the inventory is not there. I mean, I certainly wouldn't just want to concede to a property because there's nothing there. So I'm like, all right, I guess I'll pick that. So I get that. But
you should never settle. You
shouldn't.
Never settle, especially when you're buying the most important, probably one of the largest, if not the largest asset you've ever bought or are planning to buy.
As long as your expectations are realistic. I mean, there are some people who, they'll be, dead in the ground by the time they find the perfect scenario. And, it's because
there is no perfect house.
Well,
ever.
There you go.
There's no perfect house, but we don't know when it's, and I think there's certain micro markets in the city, like River North, Loop, that have more inventory that you could probably get a quote unquote deal, but most neighborhoods in the city of Chicago are not acting that way, and certainly not in the burbs. Mm-hmm. But unless you're looking in those specific areas, this is what you're going to have to prepare for. And I feel like preemptively, like coaching your clients and making sure that they understand this is the market. Like, I understand my job is do this, this, and this, and I will do this, this, and this, but this negotiation stuff is going to be very tricky because it's going to be, this is what you're going to have to do to win, which is not how you want to buy a house. And I say I'm very upfront about it. I'm like, I would hate to buy a house like this. But the right time, to your question, The right time to buy is when you need to upgrade, when you need to downgrade, when you have to move for a job. Like, regardless of what's happening, interest rates or whatever, like, you're just gonna have to play with it and navigate. And that's why you have agents to navigate you through those markets, whatever it is at that time.
Yeah, this is not the time to be using as an agent your cousin's college roommate who just got their license, right? This is
No.
the time to be consulting with someone like Steve or Amber. That's my take on it.
Yeah.
I mean, Joey, let me ask you, and just kind of as to gauge what the state of the market is. How many pre-approval letters? Because I know you write a pre-approval letter for every offer that your clients are going to submit. How many pre-approval letters are you writing for offers getting submitted? And as a follow-up, what percentage of those are actually moving forward?
Man, I have one guy I've done in the last 2 weeks, 10 pre-approvals for properties he's offered on. He's not winning, which is crazy. I have some really good conversations with the list agents, and then suddenly this one happens to be in Denton, Texas, so it's just a very hot market. But he's losing out to cash offers almost every single freaking time. And he's got a buttload to put down too. Like, it's just crazy. It's crazy. Granted, I'm not a big believer in down payment. It is what it is.
Well, the VA loan nerd wouldn't be, but you know.
No. I'm more worried about debt ratios. Like, if you give me 3% down with really low debt ratios, I'm not freaking out as much as I am about 30% down with really high debt ratios. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But I would say the average buyer, before they're getting a contract, is making at least 5 offers, generally across the country for the people I'm working with.
Wow. Does that sound like a lot to you guys, Steve and Amber?
What? 5
I mean, like an average of making
And that's
5
only
offers.
offers that I'm aware of.
It's not so the average aspect is interesting because I think it depends on the agent and what they're preempting to their client of exactly how to win the deal. He just mentioned cash offers. I just got 2 cash offers and 2 more on one of my properties, as well as one that was putting money down. They were putting 20% down. Their terms were better. They didn't go with a cash offer. I don't blame them. It's not about cash. Cash is not king. It isn't. Because I think it depends on the terms. It depends on, what makes the most sense, what's important to the seller, so on. And those are things that obviously Amber and I call the agent and say, what's important to the sellers when we put an offer in? You know how many agents probably ask that question?
Not
Probably
that many, unfortunately.
10%, maybe 10%.
It's wild to me that you wouldn't take that step. I mean, Amber,
Did you write that down?
Oh man.
I don't usually write down things that you say.
We have
This
fun.
and this,
That was awesome.
This is why there's a restraining order in place, and
6 feet. 6 feet.
No, I do. I agree that I think cash is king in certain situations because there are limitations with financing regardless of the terms. But I think that also the agent behind the listing and the relationship that you have as the buyer's agent with that agent does go far, because if they know that you're good, that you'll do all the things to get it to the finish line on top of the terms, obviously, because it's about what's best for the seller. But that is a consideration. I mean, I won one recently. There was 5 offers, I think, and 2 were cash. And I was able to win because I had the relationship with the listing agent. Our terms were strong, and we had to kind of concede a little bit to be more competitive. And my client was okay with that. But I think relationships in this kind of market go so far, because you can the terms are all great, but if you've got someone who's lazy, who's not keeping tabs on the transaction, it goes sideways and they're playing golf, Steve. I'm just kidding.
These ones you're talking about can't afford to play golf.
As possible.
No, I really take that on board, because a lot of sellers, I mean, I'm seeing a lot of, not a lot, but, more certainly than I would in maybe like let's just say like a 2018 market, where you've got post-close possession, for example. And even post-close possession, and for those of you, I'm kind of using some terms of art here, post-close possession would be where a seller retains possession of the property after the transaction closes. So they've got their money, but they still live in the property for some period of time.
Also known as a leaseback.
Sure, you could call it that as
Good job,
well.
Steve.
The attorneys don't like that.
Well, the word lease gets a little bit.
No more than 60 days.
It invokes some thoughts that a lot of lawyers don't want you to think about when you talk about a landlord-tenant situation, whether one even arises when you've got post-close possession, which is a whole other topic that we'll talk about on my other podcasts, boring lawyer discussions weekly. So
Sounds like an awesome podcast.
Wow. Where do I subscribe?
I've got like, a handful of listeners. They're very loyal though. My mommy.
Are you seeing a lot of post-closing possessions? Because I feel like I am.
I'm seeing
yeah,
quite a
lot.
few. And like I've got one, for example, that just came in, and it's like 120 days post-close possession. I'm just like, I don't think that's gonna work. Because kind of 60, anything beyond 60, you're in dangerous territory as a buyer, because your lender, and Joey, correct me if I'm wrong, but on a conventional, and I think even on an FHA or VA, you're expected to have the intention of moving in within 60 days of closing. And if you don't, you're technically in default of your mortgage. Am I wrong about that, Joey?
Yeah, so these leasebacks, you can't extend beyond 60 days because then you're looking at terms for an investment property. You don't want to play that game. On the VA side, you can do a leaseback for the 60 days, but you don't have to occupy for a year.
Oh, interesting.
And that's going to be a case-by-case basis. They do want you to be within 60 days, but you have within a year for occupancy. And that has a lot to do with deployments, getting moved station to station, PCS or permanent control station moves. But yeah, you're absolutely right. 60 days. Don't lease back further than 60 days. You're gonna be,
Do you have to pay a mortgage, Joey?
I always pay my mortgage.
No, that's not what I asked.
Do you have to pay a mortgage when you're doing the lease back? Yeah, you will have your first payment due if you close April 1st, right?
No. I was
And-
asking about the VA specific. You mentioned the fact that
So if
you
you
don't
get
have to
deployed
occupy.
within 30 days, let's
Oh
say,
my
and
God,
are you paying?
Absolutely, you got to pay your
Yeah.
mortgage.
Okay, so there's not really
Absolutely.
the only benefit is what
You're not in default of your mortgage because of
not
the
occupying
greater.
inside of that year. You're just not in default of the terms. They just have a lot looser guidelines on that because of the nature of the military lifestyle. Granted, most people getting VA loans are veterans, but because of the active duty component, you have the ability to get up to a year.
Okay. And so, just to kind of, finish off that part of the conversation, it's like what's different from what I've seen in the past as far as post-close possession agreements lately is I've seen quite a few where in order to kind of win the day as the buyer, they're offering post-close possession without any rental, so it's free effectively, and all you're doing is holding back some security money in case the movers punch holes in the walls and scratch the floors and all that. So, people are getting awfully creative to get where they need to be to win a competitive bidding environment. So, they're pulling every lever possible. And to Yell's point, cash buyers tend to think that, in my experience, they tend to think that they've got a stronger hand than they do, and so they'll offer a little bit less. And to Steve's point, if you've got a really well qualified buyer who's putting 20% down, and you're hearing all the right things from someone like Joey Matthews, the VA loan on all socials, I'm taking more money. I don't know about y'all.
I mean, I will say, though, in regards to getting things appraised, that's when cash offers kind of play a little different card, because if you're giving a cash offer, and a lot of people are doing the finance optional section on the contract, which is a paragraph, for those who don't know, which basically says it is a cash offer. That's how you're presenting it. But if you flip it to financing, we'll allow that, fine, but it's not contingent on financing, which includes the appraisal. So that is great for us, especially if things are going 30, 40, 50,000 over ask, and there's a chance it's not going to appraise. I mean, I haven't crossed that yet, but you want to protect the amount that you're getting for your seller. And then you get a finance deal. They do the appraisal gap, which is saying they will pay the difference, and a lot of them are giving ceilings because of the market that we're in, and there is a chance you will be overpaying, and then you're going to regret it, 3 or 4 years if you have to sell. So it becomes a weaker deal. Unless you're willing to just pay the difference, and then you're just going to hope you're sitting in your house for a long time, that's where cash comes in. as the winner.
So it's interesting you bring that up because I just had a deal. We have a deal right now, actually, Patrick and I, in the fact of they wanted a cash. So the financing would be the option to finance, but cash deal.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's not going to fly. That means you have to have cash in order. And if it doesn't work, like the financing aspect, you wouldn't be able to rely on that. So they could actually go after you and say you owed all this money. And the fact with the financing aspect, it makes a lot more sense to keep it as a financial situation or a finance situation versus a cash, because the cash, not everyone has cash.
Wait, you got an offer that says cash with financing.
So it was a cash with finance. Can you please elaborate on this?
He's not making sense per
No,
usual.
I'm
Can
trying.
you elaborate?
All right, slow down over there.
I'm supposed to interpret for Steve. That's I'm not qualified for that.
Terrible. You are not coming back. You're right.
No, I mean, Steve, let me see if I can maybe
Yeah, please.
paraphrase what you're saying.
Yeah, I'm not doing well here.
I think maybe, broadly speaking, what Steve is trying to articulate is that if you've got a buyer who is well enough financed to make some of these more risky contract provisions work. For example, hey, I'm not going to have any of the contingencies that relate to mortgage, but I still do want to get a loan. I understand that there's a risk involved there. I'm not going to be able to rely on a mortgage or an appraisal contingency. If I'm not able to get financing, my earnest money is at risk, these kinds of things. If a seller is insisting upon that, I think what Steve is saying, you've got to be protective of your buyer, and at the very least, if make sure they understand and they're talking with someone like Joey who's helping with the financing to make sure that if the worst case scenario happens, we got a low appraisal, or there's some problem with the debt to income ratios or whatever, that there are enough numbers you can move around on the page that they're not going to just be signing over their earnest money. Is that?
Yeah, definitely talk to Joey about that because I'm going to confuse you. But yes, that's correct. It's.
Oh, don't.
I
I'm
was
just
trying
teasing,
to.
Steve.
I don't. It doesn't hurt me. It's fine.
Steve's hurt. I can tell.
He inched a couple more feet away from me.
Yeah,
So.
he's going to be in the other studio
I know,
in no
right?
time. All right, we could talk about that all day, and then we would never talk about the topic that we actually walked in here thinking we were talking about. So
And no, it's not magic.
I love magic.
Who is your favorite magician, Amber?
Oh, this is a plug. James Sandin. He is a friend of mine, and he is an amazing magician.
Wow.
Go see him at the Chicago Magic Lounge.
All right,
Okay.
all right. Chicago What is the Chicago Magic
Oh,
Lounge?
it's
I feel like
pretty
I've
cool,
It's
heard
in
of
actually.
it.
Andersonville.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Fun fact, I've never been there before until Monday. I'll tell, and then we can end the magic because I just love magic. But you walk in, and it's like a laundromat, like a mini laundromat.
I think I saw that on TikTok.
And I went in, and my friend and I are looking at each other, waiting for someone to pop up and be like, "Welcome," just waiting. It was like a shtick, and then the guy behind us has been there before, and he's like, "It's right here." And there was a handle in one of the washer and dryers that we didn't see, and to open the door.
Wow, he got
Okay.
mad at you?
Yeah, he got real mad because we were
Wow.
because we were like 12-year-olds. We were like, "Oh, what's next?" And then he's like, "Dude, it's right here." I'm like, "Oh."
He ruined that surprise.
That guy's so cool.
That guy probably
He's
told
been there
his
before.
children that Santa Claus wasn't real. Oops.
Yeah, well,
my
anyway,
God.
so that's
See.
the only thing I'll say about magic, but I love magic. Continue.
I like magic too. I was telling you guys about a show we saw in Las Vegas, and if you're looking for other weird stuff like that, there's a place called Area 51 that is also in Las Vegas. I think they have opened up some other locations around the country, but they've got kind of that vibe where it's like you're walking through, and to get to the next room, you have to open up. It looks like a supermarket, and to get to the next room, you have to open up like one of the freezer doors, and it's like leads you into another
Oh my God, I would love
trippy
that.
room. So you take a gummy and you head in there, and hopefully make it through without any paranoia. Anyways, okay, we
Okay.
talked about magic.
Okay, thank you.
Amber,
Thank
Devin, our producer, if you could just make a note of when we talked about that to just clip that out so we don't have to actually Perfect. Thank
Turn
you.
off
All
Amber's
right,
mic.
we got the thumbs up on that. So the magic discussion goes in the can. I'm kidding. All right. What do you guys know about this thing called clear cooperation? Maybe if someone can kind of give me a baseline definition, what is this as it is
pertains to real
discussed
estate.
in real estate.
I mean, Steve, I feel
No,
like
no,
since
you.
you've been a real estate agent a lot longer than me, you should have all the experience in the world
That's a
to.
good point.
You brought it up to me and sent it to me, so I would love to hear what you think.
Well,
Someone.
Well, I think
Come
clear
on.
cooperation has been. It's been a back and forth. The policy is like allowing all agents and buyers to have right to see properties that are coming on the market. And there's been a lot of lawsuits that I think it started in 2021 with a private listing specific company suing, saying, there was a lot of back and forth off and on. And ultimately, is it fair that people are buying things off market and not everyone gets to see it, and it's not fair? Like, that was the big hoopla. So, with the PLN, a lot of times things are being put on the PLN, which is the private listing network within the MLS. But sometimes things aren't even getting to the PLN because of relationships. We know that people have certain buyers in certain areas. So as soon as we have the listing agreement, we're calling Joe Smith or Steve Davis as my last resort. But, I'm just kidding, Steve. I love you. But so ultimately, you're going through your connections first, and if you find buyers, multiple buyers, you get it done, and then people don't see it. So the policy is trying to make it fair for everyone to have the opportunity to see the house. What, you look like you're going to say something.
No, it's just.
Your deep breath. You're getting all fired up about something.
No, I'm
Oh, okay.
swallowing.
You guys okay? We didn't take a break. We don't do commercial breaks on this show, but if we need
You
to.
should have heard our podcast when we were just doing it together or whatever.
I'm
It
glad I
was
didn't.
So great. So great.
So much good content.
So going off of what you just said, I
Yeah.
want to elaborate a little bit. So what you're speaking of is that there were certain companies out there that were their agents were holding it in the chest, so to speak. So they were not sharing it with the general public. They were not putting it on PLN. They were not making it live.
Right.
And then they were calling Amber Cardoche, my last resort as well, and saying it doesn't even make sense.
It doesn't really.
It's a
I'm
shame.
never anybody's last resort.
Oh,
You guys want me to leave you alone? Joey, you want to go
Joey's
do
not
our own
saying a
show
word.
and let these two?
Hi, PJ.
so,
I'm just Googling clear cooperation.
but so.
You Google.
So,
Get on Wikipedia.
but what's happening is that is what has been going on, and the fact is that agents are frustrated, sellers are frustrated, buyers are frustrated, and so the clear cooperation, is one of those where I think it should always be able to be. There's a reason why there's a PLN. There's a reason why you have certain leverage for your sellers. It gives them an opportunity. The whole thing with hiding listings or keeping listings to the chest and not telling anyone, well, that's ridiculous. And that should never have been allowed.
I don't think anybody's hiding listings. Though.
People are.
I mean,
people
the whole
are.
point is no. But what do you define as
So
hiding?
they have so Joe Schmo's seller wants to sell their property, and you are representing that property, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I have a client, a buyer that wants to find that property, and you go, let me see who I can reach out to because I know that this one would go for more money. I know this. I know this. So you keep it a pocket listing, like strictly pocket, where I can't even see it whatsoever. But if you put it on the PLN, as a top producer such as yourself, that I try to follow in your footsteps,
One day.
then I'd see, give you a compliment and you shoot
there.
it down. Ow. So it makes it so that I can't even see it. So I don't even know what's going on. So you're keeping listings. You're holding them to the chest so I can't even see them. No other agents can see them with the exception of who you decide to. Or as the agent, you're going to say, well, let me reach out to my buyers first and then I can duel it. So I make more money and I'm not doing my job for the seller or the buyer anyway because I'm just all about my pocketbook.
Well, I mean, that scenario is crazy to me. But I will say, in certain circumstances, the in my opinion, the seller's hiring us to do our job to get top dollar. However, but also the circumstances of the seller also have to take into consideration because there's been back and forth going on the PLN about, well, if we're just on the private listing network, could we get more eyeballs? Could we get more money if we were live? And that is a question that ultimately, especially if you get over asking off market in the PLN, sellers do go, well, if I got this, if we go online, I'll get more probably, right? And you're like, no, because the PLN.
No, you have a story about that though. I'm pretty sure if you want to share that.
I'm not going to tell the story. But my point is,
She's in her experience. She's experienced that happening. You know, in her.
I got
you
it.
know,
I just wanted to see if she tell the story.
I mean, ultimately, and there's been everyone has their viewpoints on PLN. Like, that's a terrible way to sell properties, what have you. But in my experience, it depends on the seller's situation. I've had a seller that we got a really good offer. Could we have gotten more? Because we sold it 4 months ago, and we've had a very long closing. Maybe we could get more now, maybe. But they loved the fact that it was sold. It sold for more than they were expecting. They got to enjoy the holidays, not dealing with the sale, and then now they get to move and whatever. And that is it's a non-monetary value to them. So I just think it's a situation by situation. And I just think this back and forth on if you're selling it offline, you're leaving money on the table for your sellers. I disagree.
Well, I think it's up. Well, first of all, I like that you brought that up because the thing is, it's up to the sellers no matter what anyway. We have to do what they tell us to do. So within the law, obviously. But at the same time, like I'm in a situation right now where I have a pocket listing and people want to get in there and so on. And my seller's like, I don't want to market it. I don't want to put a sign up. I don't want to do anything. I just want to sell it fast. Leave it on the pocket listing or the PLN, do the showings and get it sold. And I have 2 sight unseen offers already. And the property, there's no pictures. There's previous pictures from the PLN, or excuse me, from the listing when they bought it, but not enough to really judge and decide.
Yeah.
So I've got agents that aren't happy with me. They're like, why can't you get pictures? Why can't you do this? Why can't you get in there? And I'm like, it's up to my seller. So what's happening is we are doing 1 day of showings for 4 hours, and you have a time slot. And you get in there, you see it, you put the offer in, you have 4 hours to give me an offer. And then we decide immediately because that's what they want to do.
Yeah.
But some agents, top producing agent, because this happens to be a higher property, are frustrated. And I get it. But my fiduciary responsibility is to my clients. So to my sellers. So in this situation, I completely agree with you. And I completely agree with sometimes it's not, I don't know. I mean,
well, let me zoom out for a moment because I want to make sure that we're framing the debate in the proper way so that anyone that's following along can kind of see where we're going with it. Because I get what you guys are discussing because I'm doing this stuff every day, and I know you guys understand it. So the idea of clear cooperation, broadly speaking, relates to the notion or the policy that is out there that all listings should be available to all agents who want to peruse them, see them, that there's a level playing field as far as that goes. Now, as far as who does that favor or, why would such a policy be encouraged? I think that from a buyer's perspective, it lets you see everything that's available. I think as a consumer, as a buyer, I wouldn't want to be in a situation where if I hire a Steve or an Amber, I may not be able to see listings from another brokerage or vice versa. I wouldn't be able to see Amber or Steve's listings if I go with another brokerage. That feels like I've got to be playing in all kind of different sandboxes, and I'm already in a pickle trying to compete against the broader market and I don't want to be competing for fewer houses with what probably feels like the same number of people. Now, the competing, one of the competing or maybe the main competing viewpoints is that that's all fine and good as long as it's the agents that are kind of all having this implicit agreement with each other that I'm going to do the work, spend the money, and make sure that all of the information gets up on the listing so it's accurate so that we can all play in one sandbox. The big problem a lot of agents have with that is all of that time and money and otherwise invested into that is being sold by the MLSs to third parties, all right, big real estate websites that if you Google anything about real estate, they'll pop up on the first page because they're really good at SEO. And then they turn around and compete with you using the very data that you paid for, sourced, and put up there. And it's like, I don't like that. So there are some very large influential brokerages that want to break free of this clear cooperation and they want to do something else. Okay. So that's largely the debate is whether that should be, I guess, allowed for, should they be allowed to break free of that? Or should they be corralled back into this clear cooperation thing? And you can get into other topics like private listing network, which I think was a compromise because there were some third party private, I think there's some other ones. There's like top 10 network and
Top agent network.
Top agent.
There you go. Top agent. Zen. What
It's called TAN.
Tan.
That's the most realtor thing I've ever
Well,
heard.
when you get back from Turks and Caicos, you're gonna be tan.
Oh.
Hey. But from a seller's perspective, and I think you guys have already touched on it. It's like I want to have as much choice as a buyer has. Okay, meaning if I don't want people traipsing through my home during the holidays, I would rather probably have it on a private listing network. If I am trying to figure out whether to invest $5K or $20K to get my house ready, I might want to put it on a private listing network to get some feedback because I might find out that there's no need to put $20K in when $5K will do, and so on and so forth. And so, I wonder, do you guys have any kind of strong opinions about whether you prefer the status quo as it is, or if you would like to see maybe an alternative, such as what is being proposed by these larger brokerages that I'm not going to name? Steve?
I mean,
Status quo?
the whole thing is, I think status quo, it's like, I think in some aspects they're just making it, they're coming up with new rules and new laws and new this and new that to make the business confusing. And Amber and I were talking about this morning. The fact is like a seller always had negotiation power they always had negotiation power when they got a buyer before the settlement, the NAR settlement in August 17th. So before then, they always had the power to say, I'm not going to pay the buyer, broker. But they never did. It was just the status quo and the fact of like it's 5%, 6% is 4%, whatever the agent says that it is, and then they split it up, or their company splits it up, or whatever.
People can do FSBOs, right? Like they can even pay a small amount of money to a brokerage that will put their FSBO listing up on the MLS.
Good luck trying to get money. Good luck actually not leaving money on the table.
I take that argument, and I have no argument to provide against it. In fact, Joey, I think, could tell us some appraisal horror stories for clients who are who have purchased
If you want to throw
FSBO.
away money, go FSBO. If you want to lose all the money in the world, go FSBO.
Yeah, I
I've
mean,
seen it a million times.
There was a situation that I heard of. It wasn't my situation, obviously, because it was a FSBO, but where I wasn't a part of this thing. But like in the mentality, I understand as just a normal seller thinking, I don't want to pay agent on either side. The market's hot. I could sell it. I'm seeing a lot of for sale by owners, especially in the area that I'm living. But it is true, and you can debate this all day long. You're not paying, say, $30,000 for both sides as a high point. You can negotiate, but let's just say 30, whatever it is, depending on the price of the home. But you're leaving where you could have gotten maybe 30, 40, 50, 60 more $1,000 on the purchase price if you allowed an agent to market your property.
A professional.
So
Yeah.
but I don't think there's just a lot of sellers who don't see that. They're like, that's not true.
I had a
They
client.
fundamentally don't understand how real estate is bought and sold. And I'm sorry for those of you who are out there as consumers who think I do not know what I'm talking about when I say that, but I'm sorry. I'm inside this thing. I see it a lot more clearly than most of you who are listening to this do. And, I won't back off that because, I won't try to tell you that that I know more about what you do for a living than you would, be able to tell me that you know more about what I do for a living. And Steve, the point I was making about FSBO is not to say that that's an option that I recommend people take up, but in terms of, you were saying it's always been negotiable. Sure, you can negotiate to not have to pay any commission. Now, Joey, you and I talked a couple of weeks ago about where that can go horribly wrong. Do you want to?
Well, I definitely would say do not hire Amber and I because we don't work for free. And
Well-
that's the same thing as anything else. It's saying, hey, Patrick, would you take a cut on your, about $100 instead of what you normally charge?
I mean, if you're gonna make up the difference with out of your commission, but you know, I'm a professional.
I'm saying if a buyer asks you that,
oh yeah, buyers,
or
you know,
a seller asks you that.
I charge what I charge.
Exactly.
So you
So
know,
that's what
but
I'm saying.
I'll be
usually-
the most affordable lawyer you ever hire. I promise.
But I think that putting in perspective for them too, saying I fight for my money the same way I fight for yours. As a, like
That's a good point. That's a good way to
I
put it.
said that
Yeah.
a lot of times for my sellers, and they're like, "Well, will you take? You know, the market's hot. I'll probably sell in a day. Will you take less?" I said, "I do the same amount of effort. I hustle the same amount of time. Like so, and I do. I turn around I'm like." I hustle for my money the same way I hustle even harder for you. So why would I? And they were like, "Oh,
Can you say that one more time, please, for everyone to listen to that?
I hustle for my money the same way I hustle for yours." Yeah, I mean,
It's really important.
but I just think that it's, you know, we're not discount brokers, but unfortunately, the lawsuits came about, and the mentality of most people looking to hire an agent is like, we're not a lot of them, but I've heard it enough since I started this business. We're lazy, it's easy, we don't do anything, and that's hard to hear. You know, like, I'm not on vacation right now at spring break with my family because I am hustling for my clients right now. I'm too busy to walk away. I enjoy it. I mean, I'm not saying this is a boo-hoo, but my point is, if I was lazy and I didn't care, I would be skiing the slopes and be like, you know, and so it is it's a sensitive subject for me because I do love what I do. I do work hard. And so this commission stuff, but I also, to the same point of why the lawsuits happened, it was always negotiable, but it wasn't stated as such by a lot of agents, which is what triggered, or part of the trigger is like, I don't think agents are going, well, we can negotiate. It's fine.
Well, it may be for the best that more conversations are being had about, you know, hey, this is what I'm going to do for you, and this is, you know, this is what you stand to risk by, you know, going it alone. And you know, I've heard people say, you know, real estate closings are easy, and my response to them is, if you think that, you either fundamentally don't understand because you don't know enough about it to see the issues that arise, or you got extraordinarily lucky like the one or two times that you were involved in a real estate transaction. Because let me tell you, if this job were easy, I would have a lot less of this color hair. All right. Now, Joey, I keep trying to turn this in your direction because I really want you to tell us about. So you're on the lending side of things, and so you're with buyers, and when your buyer is buying a FSBO, you send out an appraiser, and what do you often find is the result when the appraisal comes back?
That more sellers need realtors.
Okay.
That's a general response, and the reason for
elaborate?
that, the most egregious one that I have personally had was a $100,000 difference on an appraisal on a $300,000 purchase.
What?
We appraised it $400K on a $300,000 purchase, and the seller lost all of that money, every
Wow.
freaking dollar of it.
Oh,
So in other words,
if that's a $1 million transaction, maybe not so much of a big deal, but that is 25% of your equity that you just gave away.
I don't know anyone that doesn't look at $100,000 as a significant amount of money. I don't care how wealthy you are. That is, and you know, shoot, wealthier people are even more protective of their money than like sort of, you know, middle of the road people. You know, every dollar to them is, you know, is a win, is a referendum on them as a person, because that's the kind of person you are if you're extraordinarily wealthy, usually, unless you inherited it. But you know, I like getting that out there because it is one of the few pieces of concrete evidence that FSBO sellers are putting themselves massively at risk. And, you know, we can say it till we're blue in the face about, well, on average, a FSBO listing gets, you know, whatever, 9% less or whatever the number is. I don't remember. And, you know, people don't deal well with numbers like that. They go, I'm not average. I'm me. Did you met me? I'm awesome. I'm not subject to any sort of averages. Okay. I'm me. And you go, oh, you are you. You are special, aren't you?
Oh, that's what I say when I look at Steve.
Oh,
knew that was coming.
wow. Just
waiting.
that was tough. That was tough. If I had the malarkey flag, I'd give it to you to throw at her.
Just kidding, Steve. You know I love you.
All right. So remind me. So the reason this topic came up was because there's something happened yesterday with this clear cooperation thing. And if one of you can, remind me just broadly or just an outline of what was it? What sparked this as being topical today?
Well, and it just came out yesterday, so there are some outstanding questions that I'm still trying to figure out. But ultimately, NAR issued a new policy that's a multiple listing exempt options for sellers, meaning it's allowing the seller to market it offline without putting on the ID, like the syndicated and PLN, allowing the listing agent to market it that way for a certain amount of time, as well as there's different options, and there's got to be written notification from the seller saying that they're aware of what are the pros and cons of not putting it on the MLS outright. So this just was announced yesterday. It has to be implemented by September, so I think there's still a lot of kinks that we're trying to figure out as agents. What does that mean for us moving forward? But it is coming about because of the clear cooperation, back and forth lawsuits and what have you. So NAR is trying to implement something to kind of help resolve some of this.
In the most NAR way possible, right? By enacting some kind of, this is just my own opinion, by enacting some kind of very surface level, looks like it might be something that could be helpful to the consumer, but is more geared toward pacifying whoever's complaining. That's my own. That is not the opinion of the Chicago housing experts or Amber or Steve or Joey. That is just my cynical view on how NAR operates.
I also think that it's just another way to confuse the public. It's another way to confuse the business.
Are you saying more forums is not the answer, Steve?
No, the media is going to blow it up just like they blow up everything else. It confused everyone. So when you had this conversation after August 17th or before August 17th about the settlement that was happening and so on, that confused the public. Then they had this different belief and oh, wait, this is going to happen and that's going to happen. And then you sit down with clients and you say, what do you know about the market? And they go, well, I heard this and now I don't have to pay this. And I go, well, here's the deal. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's just another thing that's going to happen where it's going to confuse the average person that doesn't do what we do.
I don't know. I think the changes that happened in August were all for the good.
I think so too. I'm not saying they're not. I'm just saying the public, though.
A lot of the public didn't even know. I've talked to so many people that I go, oh, you heard about the lawsuits? They're like, nope. What were they for? And so I have to say, well, this happened, and because of this, which it should have always been this way.
And
I'll tell you, I'll be the first one to say that, yeah, it was a different conversation-ish after the whole lawsuit changes, but it only made buyers agents step up their game and actually state their value, because I do think there's a lot of agents who are just like, yeah, you want to work with me? You like me? Oh, you don't have to pay me. It's cool. And I know that those conversations took place because I know people who said that. I go, why would you say that? In what world do you say, here, I'm going to provide you the service, and I'm free? Because someone else is going to pay for it. Nobody. So I just think it's all been great. And I think the people who got Freaky Friday about it and like, are the ones that can't state their value and they're not good agents. So I don't know.
Which actually helps us because then they're out of the industry, and I like that because there's a lot of agents that should not be in the industry. So when that did happen, you and I had a conversation where like, I don't know, do we like it? Do we not like it? So on. So the first initial, I'll just speak for myself, was a freak out moment, right? Thinking, oh my gosh, now it's non-existent, this, that, whatever. And then I realized, oh, this is actually a good thing for you and I, especially as top agents in regards to like dealing with a lot of buyers, sellers, investors, and being in the industry long enough, we knew how to deal with it. And I think that made actually our job even better in the fact of like, now there's not going to be as much competition. Now there's not going to be, right? So Joey could go on about talking about the fact that like, it was like 1.5 million went down to like 300,000 loan officers or something like that, like some crazy number when that happened, correct?
Yeah, like a absolute ridiculous amount. Yes.
You still have more attrition to go, as far as I'm concerned. I'm still dealing with some real bogus mortgage brokers.
Well, dude, like 6 months ago, there was a very short blip in the refi market, and I saw so many former mortgage people like, "Hey, I think I'm gonna get back into mortgage," and I'm just like, "Please don't, please don't ruin this."
Yeah.
Good times.
That's a whole. Tune in next week when we air all of our grievances about all of the people that aren't as good as us. Stay tuned.
So many people.
But it's interesting. Yeah, we're living in exciting times, unprecedented times, some might say, and the people who say that are kind of obnoxious. But it is interesting though, and I guess my curiosity is not so much how these changes are going to what are going to be the effects in the short term. I think that it's the evolution that will be more interesting to me. Right now, we've got the market that we have, where sellers are fewer than buyers. There's less supply than demand, and so that's driving what the effects of these changes are. I think that when that changes, and I say when because although I don't know exactly when, I know that it is a when, and buyers do have more position in the market. Those negotiations, clever real estate brokers like yourselves are going to figure out ways to leverage that as well. So, where, you might say, hey, as a listing broker, you might go, hey, let's offer another, a little bit more, for the broker commission, or let's, I remember back in, when Steve was first starting, if a buyer asked for something, you're like, oh, I probably should give it to them, or they're just going to bounce because there was like a million places to just go and buy, and obviously that's not the case anymore. So it will be interesting. It always is, and I appreciate the discussion, you guys. We are just about out of time, and so I am going to provide each of you an opportunity to reintroduce yourselves. Let us know how to get in touch with you for the the hordes of fans that cannot wait to dive into the topic of real estate and clear cooperation and all of the fun things we talked about. Amber?
Yes, I'm Amber Cardosh at Properties Christie's International. You can find me on Insta at Amber Cardosh Real Estate, and you could reach me via email at acardosh@properties.com.
You said Insta like your kids are going to hear that and make fun of you?
I think I should say the gram. I don't know what the cool kids are saying.
I mean,
IG.
Don't look at me. Oh.
Well, I know you're not a cool kid, but
Nope.
I don't know what the right term.
we didn't have social media when I was a kid.
Do they shorten Facebook? Is it called like the book? Or is it just, I don't know.
We would have
It's
to ask
called
Charlie.
Old Book.
Old book.
Old
Because
book.
like old people like us.
I guess.
People who are not eligible for AARP don't know anything about Facebook. So, Steve, if you wouldn't mind, reintroduce yourself. Tell us how to get a hold of Steve Davis, and tell us why they should call you instead of Amber.
He's speechless.
Can't do it. Can't do it. She's
Unbelievable.
amazing. Steve Davis, Real Brokerage. You can get a hold of me on Instagram at I'm Steve Davis, and you Facebook and 312-513-6314. But I will say that if you do want to be in comical land, watch the bloopers on Amber trying to play golf.
Oh, sick burn.
Wow. I mean, with no time left for a response, that is... I hate to see what's going to happen to you after we're off the air here.
Me too. I
Joey,
need to run.
do me a favor.
She's very
reintroduce yourself. Talk over Steve. And
Man, it was so nice having the best realtor in Chicagoland, Amber.
Oh,
Carter.
no. There
I knew I loved you, Joey.
it is. I know.
wow.
Oh, that's awesome.
I mean, we should just drop the mic. But I want you to tell us how to get in touch with you for all of the mortgage wisdom.
So you can call or text me at 630-235-2405. You can email me at info@thevaloannerd.com, across all the social medias as at @thevaloannerd. You can, I think that's it. Man, I just kept talking there, about it.
That is kind of the whole thing about being, in a broadcast medium, is you're supposed to talk. So thank you for that, Joey. I'm Patrick Loftus. I am a real estate lawyer, believe it or not a professional broadcaster. Find me on Instagram, Loftus_law. Find me on TikTok until it gets banned again, Loftus Law. And otherwise, guys, see you next week. We're out of here.